Hello. Today we'll be talking about the PATRIOT Act. What is the PATRIOT Act, you may ask? It's an act that was enacted after 9/11 that allows the NSA, a branch of the U.S. government, to spy on every U.S. citizen's phone calls, text messages, and emails. This act was passed by President Bush and reaffirmed by President Obama. Now, the argument they'll be making about the PATRIOT Act has 2 points. We'll get to part 1 first and then move on to part 2, which makes sense. Part 1, I'm going to be arguing for the dismantling of the act. We need to get rid of it because of 3 points. The first point is that it violates the Fourth Amendment, which has an implied right to privacy. This is a clear violation of our right to privacy. It specifically could even constitute as unlawful search and seizure. I'll get to that. 2, the fact is that the reasoning behind why the NSA requested such an act was completely falsified, and therefore we shouldn't have had it in the first place. And 3, it hasn't actually decreased the amount of terrorist attacks in the U.S., so it's a useless act. So let's start off with our point 1, so each point by point. The implied right to privacy has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court time and time again about the Fourth Amendment. Also, the Fourth Amendment states no unlawful search and seizure, and search and seizure constitutes getting evidence on people without any probable cause, and you don't have probable cause for every citizen of the United States to gather this kind of evidence on them. So arguably this is a mass violation of the Fourth Amendment, throwing that out there. Second, a documentary done by Nova called The Spy Factory was done, and in that documentary by Nova, we had people that stated that the NSA requested originally for the PATRIOT Act to happen because they're like, well, once these terrorists went into the United States, we knew that they got into the United States, but they were in the United States, so we could no longer spy on them or monitor them, and that's why 9/11 was allowed to happen. We could have prevented it if only we could have spied on them when they were in America, but we couldn't. Could you possibly give us that permission? And Bush was like, well, I guess we have to give you that permission. Except the fact is, they were fully within their legal right to continue spying on them. They just chose not to. That's pretty fishy if you ask me, and we'll get back to the fishiness on why they wanted the right to spy on every American citizen. Now, at the very least, you'd hope that if they're allowed to spy on every American citizen, that we'd have a mass decrease in terrorist attacks. Although, this graph right here, see this? Yeah, they're going up. You see that? That's up. Terrorist attacks are going up. So therefore, it's pretty useless, obviously, all right? Those are the 3 big reasons why we should just get rid of such an act. But getting rid of it's not enough, because one has to ask a question, all right? Why would an act be passed that allows people to spy on every American citizen? And obviously it's not to prevent terrorism, because terrorism has actually gone up. There must have been some other motive. That motive is aliens. Hear me out. It's obvious that they needed the ability to spy on the American citizens because they have to monitor not our ability to talk about terrorism and to prevent terrorism, but to prevent talk about people who are actually catching on to the aliens that are being kept in Area 51 and other aspects of the U.S. government, because the NSA is a government-run program. That's right. The government is covering up aliens and is able to find the people who actually are getting a lead. That's why we haven't had any major breakthroughs about aliens. Not too long ago, there was talk of the Navy finding a U.S. an unidentified flying object, and there was no real mass buzz around it. All these other conspiracy theories, like about the election fraud, have been flying around willy-nilly. Funny that the talk of this actual UFO was very limited. It's almost as if a network that has been around spying on the American citizens has silenced it. That's right. The NSA's true purpose of the PATRIOT Act. That's why we can't just dismantle the act. I'm calling for a mass use of the Public Information Act on all of the NSA's work, because we can prove aliens through them. They have been the main source of covering up the aliens. Because that's right, friends. It's upon us. We have found the government's way of keeping aliens secret. This is how. Join me. We will tear down this and discover aliens.